Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that takes a pile of sources and, well, boils them down for you, giving you that shortcut to really being in the know. Now, I get it, freezers might not immediately sound like the most thrilling topic out there, but what if I told you that looking closely at the global freezer market actually gives us this surprisingly clear window into, global economics, how people are shopping, even bigger development stuff? So that's what we're doing today. We're diving into a pretty detailed market analysis. Our mission is to pull out the key bits you need to understand this, fundamental industry that maybe doesn't get talked about much. We've got revenue numbers from 2021. We're looking ahead to 2025 projections and then casting forward all the way to 2033. And we'll break it down globally, regionally, even country by country. Okay, so let's start with that big picture, the global view. Back in 2021, the whole market was worth over $16.3 billion. And it's not just staying there.
It's expected to grow to over $18.6 billion by 2025, and then hit a really substantial $24.4 billion by 2033. You translate that, it comes out to an overall compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of nearly 3.4% over that whole period. So this steady kind of hum of growth, what does that really signal about global appliance trends overall?
Well, what's fascinating here is exactly that word you used, steady. It's not some sort of explosive up and down growth. It's very consistent, robust expansion. This tells us it's not a fad, right? It suggests a really deep, ongoing, and actually expanding demand for freezers across the world. It kind of highlights how vital this appliance has become, for daily life, for global consumption patterns. It's quietly adapting as households change, maybe preserving food longer, buying in bulk, just needing convenience.
Yeah, that consistent hum, it definitely paints a picture, doesn't it? Okay, so with that global framework set, let's zoom in a bit. Let's see how the different regions are contributing because, like you said, the growth isn't the same everywhere. There are some really remarkable differences when you look closer. First stop, Asia Pacific. This region is, undeniably the powerhouse when it comes to growth in this market. We're looking at the market there expanding from about $6.5 billion in 2021 all the way up to over $10.1 billion projected for 2033. That gives it a strong regional ski of nearly 4%.
Right. And if we connect that back to the bigger picture, Asia Pacific leading the charge isn't just because it has a huge population, though that's part of it. It's really heavily influenced by rising incomes, disposable incomes, and that, rapid expansion of the middle class you see in so many countries there. That creates this powerful engine for people buying appliances for the first time or maybe upgrading what they have. It really sets the scene for the kind of varied and often quite rapid growth rates we're seeing across that very diverse region.
And yeah, when you dig into those specific countries, some numbers really do pop. You've got the big players like China and Japan showing solid growth, both around 3.5% CAGR, which is respectable. But the real acceleration seems to be coming from places like India. Their projection is growth at a pretty remarkable 4.9% annually. And then there's Singapore. It's just an absolute outlier, isn't it? An exceptional TAGR of 5.45%.
Wow, yeah.
We also see really strong performance from Southeast Asia as a whole. That's growing at over 5%. But then you contrast that with somewhere like Australia, much slower expansion. Their CAGR is below 0.3%.
That contrast is stark. That really rapid growth in India and Singapore, it points directly towards, significant economic development and urbanization. For India, you've got this vast emerging consumer base just starting to enter the market for these kinds of goods. Singapore, though, that's different, right? It's smaller, probably higher existing penetration. So that super high growth there might reflect something else, maybe a big push towards premium models, smart freezers, or maybe it's about adapting to urban living, online grocery deliveries, needing more storage, bulk buying, even in smaller spaces.
Interesting.
It really suggests that households aren't just getting access, they're actively integrating these things into, modern lifestyles as living standards rise.
Okay, let's move across the globe now. Let's shift focus to North America. This region is showing, steady and significant expansion. Revenues growing from just over $4.7 billion back in 2021 to a forecast of nearly $6.7 billion by 2033. That's a CAGR of 2.86%.
Yeah.
Respectable.
Yes, respectable. But notice North America's growth rate, while big in dollar terms, is quite a bit lower than Asia Pacific's. And that often indicates, a more mature market, a place where a lot of households already have freezers. So the growth driver here isn't so much people buying their first one. It's more likely driven by replacement cycles, getting rid of the old one, maybe upgrading to something bigger, more energy efficient, maybe a smart freezer. And of course, just ongoing demand from new houses being built.
That makes perfect sense for a mature market dynamic. Now, within North America, the U.S. is, as you'd expect, the biggest piece of the pie. It's growing at a CAGR of about 2.65%. But what's interesting to me is Canada. It actually shows a comparatively stronger growth rate within the region. Its CAGR is 4.4%. What do you think might be behind Canada pulling ahead like that, relatively speaking, in what we're calling a mature region?
That's a really good question, and it just shows there are always nuances, doesn't it? Even within these big established markets. Canada's higher CAGR. It could be a few things. Maybe different consumer habits compared to the U.S., perhaps a greater tendency for bulk buying, maybe related to climate or just larger average household sizes up there. Could also be tied to specific things in their housing market, maybe, or even certain retail trends that encourage having that extra freezer space. It's definitely not just one simple story, even on the same continent.
Fascinating stuff. Okay, next up, let's cross the Atlantic and explore Europe. The European market expanded from just over $3 billion to a projected $4.35 billion by 2033. That puts its CAGR at 2.78%. So similar overall to North America. But okay, let's unpack the differences within Europe, because it really is a bit of a mixed bag over there. You see some strong performers. France, for instance, has a KGR near 3.9%. Italy's solid, too, at 3.3%. And interestingly, the category labeled Rest of Europe is actually leading the whole region with a pretty impressive 4.24% CAGR.
That rest of Europe is pulling up the average then.
Exactly. But then you pivot and look at places like Sweden and Denmark. And it's a completely different story. They stand in really stark contrast. Their growth rates are remarkably low. Sweden's is just 0.38%. And Denmark is even lower, just 0.21% CAGR. It really begs the question, doesn't it? Why such sluggish growth in those Nordic countries compared to their neighbors, especially when others are doing okay?
Yeah, that variation across Europe is incredibly telling. Market maturity probably plays a role in some of the slower areas, high existing appliance ownership. But the Nordic case, Sweden and Denmark, that's particularly striking. It could reflect some very specific cultural habits around food, maybe. Perhaps a stronger tradition of buying fresh food daily, less reliance on freezing, or maybe smaller kitchens in dense urban areas favor integrated appliances. It might also hint at something like really advanced energy efficiency standards, making people hang on to appliances longer unless they break, or even just a cultural emphasis on minimizing consumption generally.
Right.
Hard to say just from the numbers.
Very interesting possibilities. All right, let's jump now to South America. This region shows, I'd say, surprising vitality. It boasts a high regional CAGR of 4.4%. His market is growing from nearly $1.1 billion to over $1.8 billion by 2033.
And notice that CAGR, 4.4%, that's actually higher than both North America and Europe, which is genuinely fascinating and maybe often overlooked. It points to a really strong, dynamic path for this region in the freezer market. Suggests a significant phase of, development and consumer adoption is underway.
It certainly seems that way.
Yeah.
And looking at the key countries there, Argentina has a very high CAGR, 5.14%. Colombia is also extremely strong at 5.1%. Brazil's the largest market there, and it still shows really robust growth, too, at a 4% CGR.
That strong growth in South America, especially in places like Argentina and Colombia, it could signal several important shifts happening simultaneously. A growing middle class finally having the disposable income for these kinds of appliances, increasing urbanization, which always changes how people shop for food, and maybe just a broader embrace of modern lifestyles that lean more on bulk buying or frozen foods for convenience. It's a really powerful signal of economic development translating directly into people buying appliances and changing how households run.
Okay, next up, let's look at the Middle East. The market there is growing, going from roughly $572 million to $715 million by 2033. But, and this is key, it shows the lowest regional CAGR overall, just 1.91%. Within the region, the UAE actually has the highest CAGR at over 3%. But other big markets like Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Qatar, they show a much more modest growth, sort of hovering around 1.3% to 1.6%.
Yeah, the Middle East's slower growth compared to other regions, it might be influenced by a mix of things. In some parts, maybe there's already market saturation, especially in wealthier areas. Or perhaps there are deeply ingrained cultural preferences for fresh food markets, daily shopping habits that just reduce the perceived need for large freezing capacity.
Right, less reliance on frozen.
Exactly. The data doesn't spell out the why, of course, but it definitely prompts you to consider those underlying cultural or economic factors that shape what consumers demand.
Makes sense. Okay, finally, let's turn to Africa. Here, the market is set to grow from just under $376 million to over $632 million by 2033. And that's at a solid CAGR of 3.8%.
Yeah, and it's important to really highlight that CAGR for Africa. 3.8% is relatively high, isn't it? It puts it
Yeah.
above both Europe and North America in terms of growth rate. If we connect that to the bigger picture, it really underscores Africa's tremendous emerging potential. It likely reflects increasing access to stable electricity grids, which is fundamental. Essential, right, and growing household incomes, plus a rapidly expanding consumer base that's eager for modern conveniences. This isn't just about selling more freezers. It's tied to really foundational development happening across the continent.
It really does highlight that foundational expansion. And when we look at specific segments within Africa, Nigeria is projected to grow with a CAGR of nearly 3.5%.
Right.
South Africa is very similar, around 3.46%. But the rest of Africa's segment, that actually shows the strongest growth rate within the continent, over 4.15%.
And that significant growth across Africa, including that strong rest of Africa number, is incredibly telling. It suggests a really widespread expansion is happening as more and more households gain access, not just to electricity, but also to the purchasing power needed. It hints at these larger trends of development and consumer access really taking hold across the continent, fundamentally changing how families store and use food.
So, okay, we've traveled the globe, looked at all these numbers. After navigating this pretty fascinating landscape, what does it all mean when you pull it back together? What are the main takeaways, the big insights we can really glean from all this data?
I think overall, the picture is one of consistent, healthy growth for the global freezer market. It shows its lasting importance. Asia Pacific and South America clearly stand out as the real hotspots for growth rate, driven by dynamic economies and these rapidly evolving consumer needs. North America and Europe, they're still huge markets, of course, but they show that more mature, steady growth pattern. Although, as we saw, there are intriguing variations within those regions that highlight unique local dynamics. And then Africa, while starting from a smaller base number, is showing really significant foundational potential, pointing towards substantial future expansion down the line.
Yeah, and some of those individual country numbers really are striking when you line them up. Singapore's exceptional 5.455% CAGR. You just don't see that often. And Argentina and Colombia both over 5%. Those really stand out as indicators of rapid market shifts. But then on the flip side, you have the really slow growth in Sweden and Denmark, less than 0.5%. That's such a powerful counterpoint. And while, our data here doesn't give us the exact why behind every number, these stark contrasts really force you to think, don't they, about what deeper factors might be at play. Is it economic development stages, urbanization rates, big shifts in how people shop or eat, maybe technology adoption speeds? It could be any combination.
Exactly. It pushes us to consider those underlying drivers.
So let's bring it back to the listener. Why should you care about these trends in freezer sales? I know it might seem like a fairly niche topic, maybe just about an appliance.
Yeah.
But how does this connect to your world beyond, the box in your kitchen or garage?
Well, this market data, it's actually much more than just appliance sales figures. It turns out to be a surprisingly robust indicator of broader things. Global economic health, for one. Rising disposable incomes, especially in developing regions. It definitely reflects changing consumer habits, too. Think about trends like more bulk buying, maybe to save money or time.
Yeah, I do that.
Right. Or a growing focus on reducing food waste, which freezers help with. Or even just an increased reliance on frozen or pre-made meals for convenience in busy lives. And crucially, as we touched on, it also points to fundamental infrastructure development, specifically wider access to stable electricity. That's just non-negotiable for refrigeration.
Can't run a freezer without power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So ultimately, these numbers subtly mirror the fundamental ways we live, how we eat, how we manage our households all over the globe. They signal shifts in everything from individual family budgets right up to complex global food supply chains.
Wow. What an interesting journey that was through the world of global freezer sales. It really just goes to show, doesn't it? Even topics that seem mundane on the surface can reveal some truly fascinating insights when you, do a deep dive. We hope we've given you a concise, informed perspective on a market that, okay, maybe isn't flashy, but is incredibly foundational to how so many of us live our daily lives.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought for you to chew on. As you reflect on what we've discussed, maybe think about how these seemingly simple appliance numbers might actually be reflecting much larger stories. Stories about global population growth, continued urbanization, shifts in diets towards maybe more convenience or needing longer storage, or even the growing importance of food security and effective food preservation strategies all around the world. It connects to some big themes.
Great point. We definitely encourage you to think about what you found most surprising or impactful in today's deep dive, and maybe continue your own exploration. Until next time, stay curious.
Have you ever really stopped to think about that box in your kitchen? The freeze.
The silent workhorse, yeah.
Exactly. We just, take it for granted. But it's actually kind of revolutionized, well, everything. How we prep meals, global supply chains, the lot.
Mm-hmm.
So today on the deep dive, we're going to pull back that icy curtain. We're looking at something surprisingly dynamic, the global freezers market.
Sounds chilly, but yeah, surprisingly interesting.
Right. So our mission here for this deep dive is really to dig into the sources you've shared with us. We want to pull out the most important insights, get a grip on the forces shaping this market, and maybe uncover some surprising facts along the way.
Okay.
We'll explore the dynamics, the drivers, the restraints, future trends, all of it. So I guess the first question is, how did the humble freezer become so central to, how we live, eat, even manage energy?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It seems so simple, but it connects to these huge trends. We're talking urbanization, massively, the e-commerce boom, even global sustainability efforts.
Really? Sustainability?
Oh, definitely. It's way more dynamic than just, keeping your ice cream frozen. It's a real linchpin. So maybe we should start with what's actually driving the growth. And the most obvious place to start is, well, us.
Consumers.
Okay, consumers. So when we talk about primary forces, is it just that more people want frozen pizza? Or is it something bigger, a societal shift?
It's definitely a societal shift. People call it the convenience revolution. And it's fundamentally changing how we think about food.
How so?
Well, think about dual-income households, right? Or city professionals just juggling crazy schedules. Frozen foods aren't just a backup anymore.
Right. They're becoming kind of essential.
Pretty much. They offer longer shelf life, which is huge.
Yeah.
Minimal prep time. And the choices now, they're massive. You can get almost anything frozen, and the quality is often really good.
Quality. That's a big one. I think some of us still have that lingering image of freezer burn, mushy vegetables.
Yeah.
Sure, that perception was there. But the industry has invested massively to change it. We're talking much better freezing techniques now. Things like cryogenic freezing in some cases.
Wow, okay.
And packaging. Huge innovations there, too.
Yeah.
It all means flavor, texture, nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
They're preserved remarkably well, like locking in freshness almost instantly. Sometimes frozen can actually be better than fresh that's traveled for days.
That's a really interesting point. So it's not just about the supermarket aisle anymore. This whole advanced freezing thing goes beyond our dinner plates, doesn't it? I remember reading about BioLife Solutions buying Sterling Ultra Cold back in 2021. That sounds different.
Exactly. That's a perfect example. It seems niche, right?
Yeah.
Ultra-low temperature freezers.
Yeah.
But BioLife acquiring Sterling Ultra Cold, leader in that space, shows this other critical high-value part of the market. This isn't about frozen peas anymore.
Right. So what is it about?
It's about the absolute necessity of extreme cold for things like vaccine storage, biotech, pharmaceutical research, really cutting-edge stuff.
I see.
So that kind of industry consolidation, it shows a push into these super specialized areas. Crucial for science, for medicine. It really broadens the whole idea of the freezer market way beyond just, consumer goods.
That makes total sense. The market's way more diverse than you'd think just looking in your kitchen. Okay, so convenience is transforming our plates. What about the box itself? You mentioned technology earlier.
Yeah. Here's where it gets really interesting. The next big wave isn't just what's in the freezer, it's how the freezer itself works. They're getting smart, really smart.
Okay, so like smart thermostats, is that what we mean?
Well, yes, but much more than that. We're talking serious technological leaps in energy efficiency and temperature control. Think IoT integration, smart sensors.
IoT, like connected to the internet.
Exactly. And even AI-powered temperature management. These aren't just gimmicks. They learn your usage patterns. They can predict peak energy times. They fine-tune compressor cycles constantly, in real time.
Wow. So my freezer could know when I'm likely to open the door.
Potentially, yeah. Or it senses the room temperature changing and adjusts proactively. All to maintain peak efficiency with minimum power draw. It's pretty sophisticated stuff becoming standard.
That is genuinely impressive. So what's pushing this? Just people wanting lower energy bills? Or is it more?
It's kind of a perfect storm, really. You've got regulations changing globally, a huge push for sustainability, both from consumers and corporations. And yeah, definitely rising electricity costs are a big factor.
Makes sense. A triple whammy almost.
Right. It forces the market to innovate and fast. Plus, the actual materials are getting better enhanced insulation, smarter components inside. It reduces the environmental footprint and gives users more control and reliability. So it's kind of a win-win, but definitely driven by these big pressures.
Okay, so it sounds like this market is just constantly improving, solving problems, but I imagine it's not all smooth sailing, right? There must be challenges, hurdles.
Oh, absolutely. There are definitely still hurdles. A really persistent one is just the sheer amount of energy traditional freezers use, especially the big ones.
You mean like in supermarkets, restaurants?
Oh, exactly. Commercial settings, restaurants, supermarkets, those huge cold storage warehouses. For them, inefficient units aren't just bad for the environment, they're a massive financial drain, especially when energy prices are, bouncing around.
And I guess that hits smaller businesses harder. They can't just absorb those costs.
Precisely. Small businesses often run on really tight margins. Upgrading to the latest high-efficiency freezer system, that's a huge chunk of capital.
Yeah, they might just not have it.
Right. And that slows down the adoption of these modern, efficient units in some really important parts of the market. It's a genuine barrier to getting everyone modernized.
Okay, so we have these challenges, particularly around energy and cost. Knowing that, what's the outlook? Where's the industry heading to try and overcome this?
Well, the big one is that commitment to sustainability. It's
Yeah.
really front and center now for businesses and consumers. So that means a huge focus on energy-efficient designs. And we're seeing some amazing innovation there, like next-gen insulation materials, really high-performance stuff that dramatically cuts down heat getting in, plus energy-saving compressors, smarter defrost cycles, things that sound small but add up. They're really making big dents in power usage and emissions.
And it's not just about like feeling good about being green, is it? There's a bottom line impact.
Oh, absolutely. These developments directly boost long-term cost effectiveness. They help brands meet those global compliance standards we talked about. And honestly, it gives them a competitive edge.
How so?
Well, think about a big supermarket chain. An old, inefficient freezer might cost thousands more per year just in electricity. Multiply that by hundreds of units.
Wow. Yeah.
And then add potential carbon taxes. That liability isn't just financial anymore. It hits their sustainability targets, their public image. So investing in efficiency, it genuinely pays off. For the planet, sure, but also right on the balance sheet.
That's a really powerful incentive. Okay, so efficiency is huge. What's the other big thing transforming how we actually, use these appliances?
The other major trend, definitely, is the rise of smart features.
Oh.
It's moving freezers beyond just being cold boxes into, well, you could almost call it intelligent preservation.
Intelligent preservation. I like that. So this is the Wi-Fi connectivity you mentioned, app controls, AI, temperature stuff.
Exactly. All of that.
So is my freezer going to start texting me reminders about the leftovers I forgot before they become a science experiment?
Potentially.
Yeah.
The data possibilities are pretty vast. But maybe more practically, these features give users way more control.
Like what?
Like getting alerts on your phone if the temperature drops unexpectedly or if the door is left open, running diagnostics remotely if something seems off, and really sophisticated energy management.
Okay, that actually sounds useful.
Yeah. Imagine a system that optimizes freezing cycles based on when electricity is cheapest.
Right.
Or maybe a smart pantry feature that helps track what you've got and when it expires.
Yeah.
Could cut down food waste massively for homes and businesses. It's about creating this managed, connected environment for everything perishable.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. What does it all mean if we boil it down?
Well, I think,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the market's clearly being reshaped,
Yeah.
right? On one hand, you have this huge demand for convenient, good quality frozen food. That's driven by how we live now, busy lives, urbanization.
Right. And on the other hand,
On the other, you have relentless technological innovation,
yeah.
especially around making freezers energy efficient and smarter. That's really powering the growth.
Okay, so demand and tech driving growth. But we also have those challenges. High energy costs, the expense of upgrading. Those are real barriers.
Definitely barriers, but the overall direction seems clear. The push for sustainability, combined with these really cool smart features, it's all steering the market toward something much more connected, much greener, and actually, surprisingly sophisticated.
So this brings up a question for you listening at home. As you think about the appliances you use or maybe the shops and restaurants you go to, how do these big trends we've talked about, convenience, smart tech, sustainability, energy costs, how do they actually influence your choices, your experiences?
It's something to think about, isn't it? Because it is impacting us.
Yeah. And maybe the next time you grab something from the freezer, just pause for a second. Consider everything that goes into keeping it perfectly preserved, and how that simple act connects you to this massive global industry that's changing so fast, moving towards this smarter, more sustainable, and really quite complex future. Makes you wonder what other invisible industries are all around us, transforming just under the surface.